Disappointed by true love, Dylan and Jamie promise to sleep together without feelings, but not everything goes according to their plan. Let's start from the beginning. Dylan Harper works as an art director for a small internet company in Los Angeles, while Jamie Rellis is an executive recruiter for a major employment agency in New York City. The two have to meet up with their partners, but they don't know yet that it will be the last time they see them. Dylan and Jamie end up breaking up with their partners, each for different reasons. Dylan is almost always at work and can't give much attention to his girlfriend, and Jamie turns out to be too romantic and sometimes cold. The two, disappointed, promise to never fall in love again. Fate decided to bring Dylan and Jamie together. Jamie is tasked with recruiting an art director for a magazine. She finds Dylan, a designer from Los Angeles, and contacts him. Jamie convinces Dylan to do an interview in New York. Jamie meets Dylan at the airport and excitedly tells him that the job would change his life. At first, Dylan is reluctant to accept and move from his home in Los Angeles to New York. On the other hand, Jamie would see her compensation disappear if Dylan refused the job. So, in an attempt to convince Dylan to take the job, Jamie spends the evening driving him around the city, trying to sell him on the opportunity. Jamie shows him the nighttime New York, and the two begin to get along very well. Then she takes him to a skyscraper rooftop, which turns out to be the place where Jamie comes to relieve stress. At the end of the day, Jamie and Dylan participated in a flash mob to dance to a pop tune in Times Square. After a fun night together exploring the city, Dylan accepts the job. The next day, Jamie brought Dylan the contract to sign so she can get her commission for recruiting him. Since he doesn't know anyone else in town, Dylan invites her to lunch, and he and Jamie quickly build a friendship. Jamie jokingly makes a fuss thinking that Dylan invited her on a date. She then ends up paying for their lunch herself. While they were eating, Dylan gets a call from his ex, and Jamie answers the phone to tease her. The two turn out to be quite compatible, including the fact that they had recently broke up with their partners. Jamie invited him to her home to a party to have some fun and meet some friends. Over the next few days, Dylan turns out to be a talented art director, and the friendship with Jamie can only get better. One night, while at Jamie's house watching a romantic comedy, they start talking about sex and relationships. They come to the conclusion that sex shouldn't come with so many emotional attachments. They agree on the view of sex as a necessary physical connection, an outlet of sorts. After swearing that they will not develop deep feelings for each other, they begin what will be a long series of dates aimed exclusively at sex. Right away, they tell each other what they prefer and hate during the intercourse. The next day, Jamie invites Dylan out for a walk to tell him she regrets that she slept with him. So, they decide to just be friends and never sleep together again to not risk falling in love. But it didn't last long, as they made love again the same day. So they continued for the next few days, ending up being caught by Jamie's mother while making love. Her mother seems very comfortable, as she had met plenty of naked men in her life. She learns that Dylan and her daughter are just friends with benefits and nothing more. Jamie, embarrassed, sends Dylan away in order to stay with her mother. One day, after a basketball game, Dylan reveals to his coworker, Tommy, about his friendly relationship with Jamie. Tommy told him to be careful because he knew women well, despite being a homosexual. According to Tommy, Jamie will eventually feel something for Dylan. One evening, as Jamie spent time with her mother, she realized that she needed to make a decision. Jamie, under her mother's advice, soon comes to the conclusion that she doesn't want a relationship based solely on sex, and asks Dylan to go back to being friends so that she can start dating other guys. With no drama or anything, Dylan agreed to stop meeting solely for sex. A few days later, Jamie and Dylan look for a new partner together. Jamie notices a cute girl, and Dylan approaches her, but learns that she was married. On the other hand, Jamie meets Parker, a doctor with whom she had set up a date. Date after date, Jamie begins to like Parker. But don't you think she is only dating him to fill a void within herself? Parker seems like a cool guy, just what she was looking for. After 5 dates, Jamie decides it was time to take it to the next level. Meanwhile, Dylan had also found himself a girlfriend after a night out at a bar. The girl is very strange, and Dylan is a little embarrassed. Soon after, Dylan got a call from his sister, who invited him to spend a weekend with the whole family. The next morning, Dylan called Jamie and learned that she had made love with Parker, and in the process noticed him hurrying away. Parker confesses to Jamie that he wasn't actually looking for a serious relationship. Furious, Jamie sends Parker away, ensuring the end of their relationship. Trying to understand and help Jamie through the pain of the situation, Dylan suggests she go with him to California over the weekend to visit his family. Jamie is very hesitant, but agrees after much insistence on Dylan's part. They fly to California, where Jamie first meets Sam, Dylan's nephew. Sam impresses Jamie with his magic skills, but ends up catching fire. In addition, Jamie gets to meet Dylan's older sister Annie and his father, who has Alzheimer's. In fact, he often forgets about some people and no longer wears pants. Annie showed Jamie pictures of Dylan from when he was younger and revealed to her that he used to stutter. That same night, Dylan walks into Jamie's room to have fun. but she said she needed moral support. They spend time drinking wine and enjoying themselves while listening to music. Then, they began to form feelings for each other and shared a passionate kiss, which led to a night of close intimacy unlike any they had shared before. The next day, they all had breakfast together, and Jamie had a ride with Sam on the jet skis. Sam revealed that everyone missed Dylan, and that his father often confuses Sam with him. During a dinner out, Dylan's father began asking about his wife, with whom he had separated 10 years ago. Jamie began to learn about many things Dylan was hiding from her. For example, his mother, who had left them when they were little and with whom he remained on bad terms. Dylan didn't talk to her about this because he hated talking about his problems. Soon after, since they were in a restricted area, a police helicopter arrived. Jamie jumped off and encouraged Dylan to do the same, but he got nervous and started to stutter. Back at the house, Jamie overhears a conversation between Annie and Dylan that indicates he has no real feelings for her. Hurt, she flies back to New York, alone. A few days later, Dylan returns to New York, trying to reconcile his friendship with Jamie, but she continues to not return his texts and calls. One day, Jamie spoke with a new client who wanted to update the design of their website. The client knew Dylan and his skills, but unfortunately, Jamie said they were no longer seeing each other, and that he's got a contract. Realizing that he wouldn't be able to talk to her on the phone, Dylan went up to the roof of the skyscraper, the same place she had taken him to on the first night in New York. He finally finds Jamie, and she confesses to him that she heard everything he said and has no interest in maintaining any kind of friendship with him. Later, Jamie finds out that Dylan may be leaving the position at GQ for another job, which would affect her commission. She confronts Dylan about this, which leads to another discussion. Jamie spends time with her mother, while Dylan discusses this with his sister on the phone. His sister informs him that his father, who is suffering from the early stages of Alzheimer's disease, will be flying to New York and needs to be picked up at the airport. They decide to stop for lunch, and Dylan notices that his father is without his pants and decides to take them off as well. As they eat, his father, in a moment of Alzheimer's-induced confusion, mistakenly recognizes a passerby as a woman from his past. Dylan asks him about this woman, and his father, after regaining lucidity, says that she was a woman he had met in the Navy, that she was the love of his life, and regrets the decisions he made in his youth to let her go. Dylan told him about Jamie, and his father suggested to not make the same mistake he did and let her go. Dylan realizes how he feels about Jamie, and after a conversation with his friend and colleague Tommy, he decides to go after her. He calls Jamie's mother to come up with an excuse to get Jamie to go to Grand Central Station, thinking she was going to pick up her mother, and sets up another flash mob scene to surprise Jamie at Grand Central. When the time comes, he catches up with Jamie and tells her how he really feels for her. Surprised and happy by this turn of events, Jamie tells him to kiss her. After sharing a kiss, Dylan suggests that it's time for them to go on their first real date. They go to the bar across the street, and although they try to keep the date casual and relaxed, the movie ends with them in a sensual embrace and a passionate kiss. Click here to find out how a nerd's life changed after discovering that the girl next door used to be an adult film actress.